who was Arthur Machen. He was a man born in Killeen around the end of the 19th century. He wrote horror, fiction, and became a journalist in his later life. There was always very dark themes in his work, but he didn't spell it out. His mother died when he was quite young, and he was brought up by his father and an auntie. His childhood must have been quite lonely. His only escape was the library, and he loved reading. Reappearing themes throughout his work would be the landscape of this area, South East Wales, and also the landscape of the City of London. He loves the streets of London. He's very clear where some things are, but others he's kind of made them up. You kind of know it's near Killeen, but you look around and you think, well, where's he placed it? And he's took a bit from Abergavenny, he's took a bit from somewhere else, and he's formed a landscape which is made up of places he remembers as a child. When he got to the age of about 18 or 19, he had to do something. The original plan was for him to have gone to Oxford or Cambridge, where he would have studied properly to become a priest. But he hadn't got this. At one point he was taken to London by his father for an entrance exam to be a doctor. But he failed because he was hopeless at maths. Eventually he did move to London. He ended up translating a number of books. He was very good at languages. He struggled a lot in London. He was a very solitary, lonely life. And one of his books, The Hill of Dreams, tells the story of how difficult he found it, living in London, particularly in his early 20s. In The Great God Pan, the story starts in the Usk Valley. An experiment takes place in which a young girl has part of her brain removed through an operation. She then becomes possessed by Pan. This woman starts meeting with wealthy men in London who ultimately die in terrible circumstances. When it was first published, it was slated so much in the press. If you read it nowadays, you've got a job to try to understand why they found it so horrific. The worse publicity you get for a book, obviously the better it sells. These little people are a recurring theme as well in Machen's work. Where his house was in Llanddewi, he was surrounded by these little people.
My fairies originally were about 8 centimetres tall. They were mischievous and a bit naughty. I'm quite an obsessive person and I got obsessed with them, or maybe they just control me or something. And they shrunk to insect size. And they became more and more sinister and more ambitious and sophisticated in terms of architecture and weaponry and attacking larger prey. My name is Tessa Farmer and I'm an artist. Arthur Machen was my great-grandfather. The flights of fancy in his novels and the depth of the storytelling, it feels very childlike, which is why I find it appealing and relevant to my own practice. The story, The Terror, I was interested in the part in that where moths fly into a man's mouth and suffocate him. I kind of twisted it, and the idea was that the fairies were controlling the moths and they were kind of amassing this army of moths. There's kind of an ongoing unease about nature being sinister. It's kind of the way that Machen looks beyond our reality, and then it becomes quite twisted and scary when you look at insect behaviour, and it can take you to more imaginative places. That kind of unease. I like to think his philosophy revolved around wonder and imagination, and the power of kind of awe-inspiring nature. I think he liked drinking tea.
Is that the same as your life philosophy?
My life philosophy, yeah, not so much the drinking. I think, yeah, I'm kind of, sometimes I feel trapped in my imagination, but it's also quite freeing. But sometimes I lose touch with reality.